Big news in the Cup, sad news in the Solent. Great news for an offshore classic. A bold challenge. A catch up with Dee Caffari. Plus, we go boat testing. And plenty in Docktalk. But first, what's the point in this? Why does a dog on a board spell an exciting future for you and me?
You got me exclusive. I'm so high up and lucid. You take me to a safe place.
The reason is that because while Kiddo here looks like he's showing off, he's actually demonstrating a new way of stabilised flight that could provide the missing link for foiling for the masses. As you probably know, there are a number of electrically powered foiling boards on the market already. Most have a fixed foil and a hand controller for the throttle. But Levelfoils have created a foil system that's configured more like a model aircraft, with a rudder and an elevator. This means that it can control pitch and turning. Combined with the solid state gyro and ultrasonic ride height sensors, the Levelfoil can be controlled much like a Segway by moving your weight fore and aft and side to side. Now how cool's that? Imagine this system without the motor on a sailboat. In the meantime, I want one. You don't get long to party after winning the America's Cup. Once the Kiwis had succeeded in their defence and the British had issued a challenge, attention switched to the 37th America's Cup. As always, there are three key topics that the Cup world wants to know: when, where and in what. If all goes well, it's a collaboration between the defender and the challenger of record that delivers the answers that are published in the America's Cup protocol. But when the document came out on the 17th of November, it was missing the venue. This is pretty unusual, as it presents a big unknown for teams and their designers. But anyone who's followed the story so far will know that the venue selection has proved difficult. You might have thought it'd be Auckland, but for all kinds of reasons, that's far from a given. And at the moment, it's a deeply contentious issue. Kiwi boss Grant Dalton said that Auckland was unlikely, but not out of the question. Interestingly, right now, the focus seems to be more on Cork in Ireland. But although there was no venue announced, the protocol did deliver a great deal of detail about how the next Cup would shape up. It also laid out some exciting new ideas. So if you want to know more, check out the feature that we produced that sets out what we know about the next Cup, along with comments from some of the big guns. The last 2 years have been hard for the organisers of one of the world's best known offshore races. The plan to use Imoca 60s and the Volvo 65s was ambitious. Then the pandemic came along and put the brakes on. Then a clash between the start and the delayed race and the route to Rome caused additional problems. But now a new date and a revised course have been announced. The biggest change is a monster 13,000 mile leg from South Africa to Brazil. Straight across the Southern Ocean, this takes the race truck back to its roots and beyond, and for my money, it's a good call. Over the years, the race became a stopping tour around the world, at a time when fast laps of the planet were grabbing a great deal of attention. We also saw this year in the Ocean Race Europe how the Imoca 60s struggled on short coastal legs where the breeze was either light or upwind. Often the Volvo 65s were quicker. Not a good look for the supposedly advanced Imoca 60s, as that's not what they were designed for. But a scorch around the bottom of the world is. And now, with the start on the 15th of January 2023, the possibility of some of the best 60-footers in the business being able to compete is a reality. Talking of blasts around the world, the monster trimaran Spindrift, now called Sails of Change, is due to make another attempt on the non-stop fully crewed record. The target they're chasing is a shade under 41 days, set by Francis Joyon and his crew aboard Edex Sport in 2017. The Spindrift personal best is 47 days and 10 hours back in 2016. But the boat has been modified several times since then, including this time. I've been lucky enough to sail this boat and she's a beast. Her crew, led by Jan Guichard and Donna Bertorelli, have had a number of setbacks in recent years. I really hope they can make it stick this time. It'll be great to watch. Fingers crossed. Elan have never been afraid to shake things up. Be it through styling, performance, or often both, the Slovenian yard have frequently led from the front. Humphrey's design has been a big part of Elan's evolution, and now they've added Studio FA Porsche and Pininfarina for the styling of their next two hot ships. The GT6 was launched just before the world went into lockdown, but word still got around, as much for her styling as her layout and innovative thinking. Next up is the E6 that Elan claims will be the fastest, lightest and stiffest 47-foot production cruiser racer with a fully fitted interior on the market. Bold claims, but not something you bet against. Both have slippery hull shapes and powerful sail plans. Both have distinctive looks, and both are going to be on display at the Düsseldorf Boat Show. The Triumph Rocket 3 has got nothing to do with boats, neither has the Triumph Bonneville. But line them up on the dock alongside a Gunboat 68 and you've a pretty cool picture, especially when they're all colour matched in metallic silver blue. The project started when Map Yachting was commissioned by Gunboat to create a distinctive colour for one of their owners. Using its exclusive paint formulation and a custom blend of pigments, Map Yachting produced an impressive colour and finish that they couldn't resist using on both of the Triumphs too. And from there, the obvious thing to do was to film them in action. Because sometimes you just want to look. When it comes to short-handed offshore events, the French are pretty good at laying on a series that will pull in the big guns. One of the latest is the Dream Cup Grand Prix de France de Course au Large, but this series is attracting plenty more than just the pros. Founded in 2016, the race runs on non-fastnet years. It starts in Cherbourg and finishes in La Trinité-sur-Mer on the west coast of France. The Giantel teams race 1,500 miles, while the Imocas, Ocean 50s and Class 40s scorch around a 1,000-mile course. Meanwhile, the IRC fleets have a 600-mile blast around the western approaches. Whichever fleet, all have courses that involve multiple legs, ensuring a tactical event. With the start on the 17th of July, the timing of the race has been carefully planned to dovetail into other racing commitments in the offshore scene. Unsurprisingly, the Dream Cup seems to be making it into quite a few diaries for next year. Now, as many of you who've been following Planet Sail, thank you very much, will know, we've been following the exploits of Dee Caffari here in her double-handed season and her quest towards the double-handed fastnet race. You'll also know, it's no great surprise, that didn't quite go according to plan, but we'll find out a little bit more about that later on. But in the meantime, what an opportunity to catch up with what Dee's been doing since. Welcome,
Thanks
Dee.
for having me.
Absolute pleasure, as always. Firstly, what the hell happened to the season? The last time we spoke it was spring, and it was all sort of, oh, it's going to be warm soon, and now?
It has
gone.
flown by, and I
has,
have
isn't
to
it?
say it wasn't until October at the Rourke Double-Handed Nationals did I wear shorts on the water this season. I have found it freezing all season, as a lot of my videos have attested
We
to.
saw you wrapped up with your hat and
Yeah.
everything else. It's been an odd season though, hasn't it? Because there hasn't been much breeze, or at least it feels like there hadn't been much breeze all year.
It lulled us into that false sense of security, I feel. We were floating around weekend after weekend, and then when it mattered, it let loose. And sadly, I was the wrong side of the war on that one.
We'll come on to that in a minute, but how did you find the season? I mean, we saw, obviously watched your videos, which are fantastic, really interesting to see how you're getting on. But I mean, you've got so many miles under your belt. I just wonder what your feelings been at the end of this season. Now you've done your first double-handed season.
I've really enjoyed it. So I've been now sailing double-handed for 18 months, and I've really enjoyed it. The level of competition has just been incrementally getting better and better all the time, so that the slightest mistake is punished. And also the racetrack what we have on our doorstep here is really technical. There's really strong tides, and invariably every race is on a spring tide. And with light winds, it makes it really critical that you get those strategy and tactical decisions right. And when you get it wrong, it's a really long way to come back from. And I think that just gives you such a really good footing for all your sailing going on. And I've gained a lot of confidence doing the double-handed stuff. I've had a lot of fun, and it's been fun to do, and I hope I do a lot more.
I was going to say, you feel like you'd like to do more.
Yeah, it's just fun racing. It's like low stress when there's only one other person to deal with, and I quite like the fact that you get to do everything rather than just kind of slapping my wrists and concentrating only on my job and not stepping on anyone else's toes a little bit. But it's quite nice because recently I've had the chance to step into a bigger crew on a bigger boat, and it's been really nice to have the confidence in the role that I'm doing and the coordination and being part of that. So I think it's really good to continue my development within the sport. I mean, we learn every day we're on the water, don't we?
So you said you've been off doing some other stuff. What have you been doing?
Well, it's only taken me 6 laps of the planet to get an invite to the professional sailing scene, but I made it to Sardinia and did the Maxi Worlds. I was on an 80-foot swan, and it was as beautiful as everyone had talked about. It was lovely. And then I had the option to go to Saint-Tropez as well. So again, super yacht sailing. I was trimming, which was quite unheard of.
Was that on the same boat?
No, it was actually a different boat. So I was on Kalima, a Swan 80 for Swan Worlds, and then I went to Aegea, the Simon Rogers 82 for Saint-Tropez, and we did a practice regatta in Ibiza. And I was trimming on both boats, which there's still that. We're still the minority female sailors in the professional sailing environment, so to be a trimmer and have kind of a key role was quite a big job. And I was like, all the pressure's on, and you can see, I sensed when I first stepped on and we were doing a couple of days training, people were looking to see how I trimmed and was I trimming, and a few comments made, and when they realised that I did know what I was doing and I was doing a good job, then everyone relaxed, and I grew in confidence as each day went on. It's not my normal environment to be in on an 80-foot super yacht, and especially not when you trim pressing a button. And I'll tell you what, the first gear goes really fast. You have to keep up with it on a jibe. But I loved it, and that was great. And actually, the confidence I had to do that role was through the double-handed sailing I've been doing. I would say because I'm now confident in my trimming, I was confident to step up and do that role in a mixed crew environment and know I could hold my own. And I probably wouldn't have done that before the double-handed sailing. I would have doubted myself.
That's amazing. I would have had it completely, if I had to guess, I would have had it completely the other way around. I would have thought that some of the crew at least would have been and should have been intimidated by your presence there. They were saying, well, we got Dee Caffari on board, come on.
Well, they did. They didn't let me know. I didn't sense it. But yeah, no, it was a really good opportunity, really enjoyed it, and hopefully there'll be a bit more of that next year as well.
Yeah, excellent. Good stuff. So talking of big races to the Fastnet, I mean, we're going to see how it played out for you, but that must have been a real blow.
It was devastating. We were planning everything towards this series, of which the Fastnet was the key race, and we wanted to do the double-handed Fastnet and be successful. I talk about the decision of when we were going to use our new mainsail, which you'll find out was the big culprit. And we were really happy with the setup of the rig with the old mainsail, and we had to get comfortable with the rig setup for the new mainsail, so we did work on that. And initially, when we were sailing with that mainsail, we were struggling. We were struggling with boat speed, and we lost some of our good results on that. But we knew that it was investment now for the big goal, which was the Fastnet. And the way that the races were weighted, the Fastnet counted for a lot. So to have the Fastnet not go the way we planned, was crushing. It kind of it blew everything for us, and we didn't get any of the results that we thought we were going to get and where we were looking along the way. As the season started, we were kind of staying at the top pretty consistently, and we were pretty confident. But Mother Nature played its game. The frustrating thing for us on the Fastnet is we'd done all the hard work, all the miserable bit. We were just getting to the good bit, and that's when our race stopped. If it's any consolation, I said to James, we actually got further than anybody else before retiring. So the Lizard was not a happy place to be on Gentoo, that was for sure. And from that moment, when it all kind of went wrong, we both went off and did different sailing. I did my super yacht sailing. James went and did some sailing on a Volvo 65. He's been sailing on an IMOCA 60. And then we literally came back for the double-handed nationals and was like, we haven't done this for a while. Can we remember what to do? And so we were pleased that the end result of our season was on a high. We went in as reigning champions and we retained our title. So we're still happy with that.
That's good to hear. I guess we better have a look at how it all went. Here's what happened.
Morning of the Rolex Fastnet race, and Gentoo is preparing to leave the dock. We've got our Storm jib and our Storm trysail ready because we have to show it at the gate. James has got multiple layers on and we're good to go. Under sail with our Storm jib and our trysail. And I'm actually quite liking it. It's very reassuring to know how lovely our storm sails are. ID gate is ahead. And then we pack them all away, hoping never to see them again.
Cowes Castle, home of the Royal Yacht Squadron, the most famous start line in all of yachting, and this the biggest offshore race.
Just hoisted and it's come off immediately. We're 15 miles from the Lizard.
Yeah.
And what's going on?
Basically, when we took the reef out this morning, we noticed that basically the leech of the main was starting to fall apart. The ballast broke, and it was getting worse and worse all day. We thought we were going to be alright, and then it just completely ripped. So we dropped the main down, tried to repair it. It didn't work the first time. Then dropped the main down the second time, tried to repair it again, but we just couldn't get it to stick. So yeah, that's it for now, folks.
My thoughts are coming to me in dribs and drabs as I take in the decision that we had to make today. And a lot of people have probably asked why we're not continuing, because we can sail with 2 reefs in our main. And I let James make the decision. This is his project that he has invited me along with, and we've been doing so well and had a real fighting spirit and wanted to be in the race to win the race, or at least to get enough points to win our class and our division in the Rorke series and the UK double-handed series. So to limp along the course with 2 reefs in the main when the weather we were going to see in the next coming days was going to be much lighter is not how we want to perform. It wasn't a case of taking part in the Fastnet race, because we've both done that before. We wanted to be competitive, so rather than just spend longer out there to complete it and tick the box, we want to come home, get the sail into the loft, try and understand how a bonded seam can part so easily, and lick our wounds ready for the next time. So some people will question the decision, and that's fair enough, but I think it is the right decision. We've done 130 miles of a 700-mile course, so there was still an awful lot to go, and we wouldn't be sailing at our full capacity and constantly frustrated. So I think it was the right decision, as difficult as it may be.
On October the 31st, 2021, one of the best known sailing landmarks in the UK was due for demolition. Loved by all those who've used it to get their bearings quickly, hated by sailing photographers and filmmakers, the 650-foot tall chimney was due to come down. And while it's got in the way of every single boat test and photo shoot I've ever done here, I'm going to miss it. And not just whilst I'm on the water. As a kid heading down to the Solent on the weekend, the angle of the smoke coming out of the chimney was the first indication of what was in store. Straight up, and my father would moan about another drifter, but when it came out horizontally, he went strangely quiet. The oil-fired power station was built in the mid-60s and started delivering power in 1972. At the time, it was one of the UK's most efficient power stations, but by 1992, it was the dirtiest, and by 2013 it was shut down. Interestingly, there were plans to turn it into an elevated restaurant, but the cost was just too high. The funny thing is that it's said that 72% of locals were in favour of keeping it. Too late now. I guess it's a good job we got the Spinnaker Tower instead. So, as they say, now you see it. No, you don't. As modern technology makes it possible to keep reaching for the sky, the demand for giant sloop rigs in the superyacht world rolls on. And here, wreckmen continue to be big players. But not all the advanced technology is easily visible. The new Baltic performance cruiser Path is one of the latest examples. She's been designed to be capable of heading to remote cruising grounds for long periods of time. Cutter-rigged with Reckman furlers for the code, blade, staysail and storm jib, 3 of the 4 systems incorporate carbon headfoils, which save a huge amount of weight aloft. The inner foil alone saves 100 kilos over a conventional alloy foil. Path's boom also has Reckman furling gear. From in-house design bearings to advanced coatings that ensure smooth operation, the engineering that goes into creating durable and reliable furling systems is impressive. But so too is Path's appearance, and I guess that neither are in dispute. Although the Grand Prix racing world gets all the attention, the developments in sail technology have been spilling over into other areas of the sport. Doyle's Stratus technology has major advantages for almost any kind of yacht. The process involves laying down a complex matrix of fibres under a combination of vacuum, pressure and heat. That pressure can be as much as 12 tonnes to create the perfect laminate. The superyacht world has seen plenty of benefits. Big weight savings in the sailplane can trigger a virtuous circle for designers. As weight is saved, loads are reduced, which in turn can save more weight throughout the hull and deck structure, until a new equilibrium is achieved, where the result is often greater performance and a better overall motion. And that is as applicable in a racer as it is a cruiser, big or small. It's just that the giants of racing often grab the limelight. Lockdowns are hard for everyone, but imagine being at sea when the destination you're heading for closes its doors. And in March 2020, that was what happened on the Caribbean island of Grenada. Fortunately, the Marine and Yachting Association of Grenada saw what was happening and made a proposal to the Ministry of Health to allow yachts to arrive in a COVID-safe manner. The plan involved strict quarantine measures, and it worked. During 2020, 700 yachts and 1,400 people arrived on the island, with only 2 testing positive. Managing the issue has built confidence on both sides, residents and tourists alike. It's clear that the global pandemic is far from over, but with an established protocol still in place, the island continues to thrive. Once a boat tester, always a boat tester. After a long wait, I've been able to get back out and test a few of the latest launches. In the cruiser racer world, the Arcona range is one that's often referred to as setting a new datum in the industry. So I went out to find out why as I got aboard the new Arcona 435. Usually on a boat test, the first thing I do is to go out and sail and then deal with the accommodation and all the other stuff afterwards. But I'm going to change it this time, for good reason. Come and have a look. Now, the reason why I wanted to start off down below is because on this boat, it's very easy to get the wrong impression from the start. After all, look at the layout. I mean, what could be more straightforward? Double cabin forward, 2 double cabins aft, a conventional U-shaped saloon, seating here, a chart table, an L-shaped galley, heads there, it's all pretty straightforward. It's only when you get under the skin of this boat that you start to realise what the concept's all about. And that concept is A, not reinventing the wheel, but B, making use of modern materials, modern techniques, and let's face it, modern looks. But here's a few quick examples. At one end of the scale, we've got leather-clad handrails. At the other, on the options list, you can have this entire boat, hull, deck and rig, made from carbon. I bet you weren't expecting that. But for all that down below, this is what really counts. And I have to say right from the start, what a boat. It's so light on the helm. It's absolutely beautifully smooth. Look, finger light control. We've got about 13, 14 knots of true wind. We're going upwind at 29 degrees apparent wind angle, and we're doing 8 knots. We've got a blade jib, or a non-overlapping jib, full main. It's absolutely beautiful. Everything is set up in the right place for you as well. I have an assistant here, of course, Simon, who's trimming the main. But actually, earlier on I was sailing along here with my legs either side of the wheel, and it's so easy for the helmsman to get close to not just the main sheet traveller, but the main sheet itself, which is both on this side and on that side, with electric controls for the winches as well. And it's superb because it means that from behind the wheel, you've got complete control of the boat, and even if you had to go forward to ease the jib, you can just get there, no problem at all, straight through the wheels, and you can get to it. It's a very, very nice setup. Okay, ready? Okay, tack in now. So again, if I'm sitting here, we've got a ferry just to windward of us, and so classic situation where you need to bear off, I can just come forward, just let the traveller down the track, and even let the main go, just to ease off, bear away, stay out of the way of the ferry. All done without ever having to stand up, leave the wheel. To me, it's the perfect way to go cruising. You need to have control close to hand. Then everybody feels relaxed and comfortable. The other controls in the rest of the cockpit are very much as you'd expect to find them, with a conventional pit, if you want to call it that, either side of the companionway hatch. So halyards and other controls happen from there. But I have to say, it's a lovely, lovely boat to sail. Performs really well. It's incredibly light on the wheel. It's dead easy to handle. I'm just going to come up behind this ship now. We can afford to head up a bit, so I might just take it up the Traveller first, I think. Make it easy for myself. Pull it up the Traveller. Put on some main sheet. Come up onto the breeze. And we're there. It really is as easy as that. The fact of the matter is that the Arcona 435 is a sailor's boat. Of that there is absolutely no doubt. She feels beautiful on the helm. She sails incredibly well, whether you're going upwind or down. She's so well balanced, so easy to manage, and the deck layout, well, it's sort of, at times it verges on a racing deck layout. You can see that quite a few things, like some of the jib cars, the tracks, the in-haulers on the jib sheets, those are all things that you'd expect to find on a race boat, not a cruiser. But as anybody who's raced and used those systems will know, it's what allows you to sail through a big wind range with the minimum of effort. And that is what this boat is all about. So Simon Rosier here is the agent and has very kindly taken us out for the day, and what a day it's been. The sea breeze has been building. We've probably got best part of 20 knots now at sea breeze, and we got full headsail, full main, powering along at 10 knots. She's quite a boat, isn't she? She's so well behaved.
Yeah, well, that's the mark of an Arcona. The late great Stefan Kleberg always designed right the way through the ages and through our current range a really well balanced boat primarily.
You really notice that because we've been pushing her far harder than you probably would when you're cruising, and yet it doesn't feel gripey at all on the helm. It almost feels like it's got twin rudders, which is quite unusual nowadays for a boat that's so beamy at the back to feel that well balanced.
Yeah, it's a deep spade rudder, and the sail plan complements the underwater profile very well.
Who are the kind of people that are buying and being attracted to Arconas? Where are they coming from? What have they got in mind for their cruising?
The common denominator for most Arcona owners are recently retired, just sold my business. Also people who, dare I say, have been passed so many times by an Arcona that they want to see what it's all about. And people who want to go further afield as well.
And I suppose one of the other things that strikes me, and probably the overriding thing, is that this is a very modest looking boat, isn't it? She's a modern boat, but not garish. She's not trying to shock you into liking her at all, is she?
No, I mean, we often hear the words contemporary classic on this particular model. Its predecessor, the Arcona 430, hugely popular, was European Yacht of the Year in 2009. This was the obvious upgrade after listening to owners and dealers alike, and this won European Yacht of the Year in 2019, but it's actually quite an accolade.
So we've established that the Arcona 435 is a pretty cool boat under sail, and under power for that matter. But let's have a closer look at what makes this boat tick on deck. And I'm going to start with the aft lockers down here because they're huge. Two lockers, one just under there, one here. Great big lockers that you can get a dinghy in, you can get fenders in, warps, plenty of space down there. That's pretty cool. So a nice wide cockpit, a feature of the modern style for beamy boats aft. But here's a clever feature. Take that out, lift that up, do that, up it comes, and out comes the table. Pretty neat, eh? The pit area is pretty straightforward, rope clutches, port and on starboard with the two secondary winches. This one on the starboard side is actually powered, but there's some quite nice little touches again, and that is the ability to cross sheets. You've got these turning blocks on either side, which means that you can take one line across and use another winch, particularly useful if you're wanting to use the powered winch on lines that are on this side. Very popular on race boats, not so common on cruising boats. Good to see it on this one. Another nice little feature is the rope tidy bins down here, down in the coamings, which is really nice. Somewhere to put the tails so they're not just dangling down inside the saloon and getting in the way down there. So a nice arrangement here. Plus, with the cover, the spray dodger has got its own recess that it can go into, keeps it nice and tidy and out of the way. The main sheet system is what's commonly referred to as a German main sheet system, in that it has a tail that goes down each side from here, but in this case it goes around a turning block in the deck and again runs under the deck, which keeps the side decks nice and clear and clutter free, so you're not skidding around on ropes all the time. The Genoa cars here, well, it's a non-overlapping headsail because it's got a full width chain plate base, so obviously the clue can't get much further than here. Short tracks here with car pullers here. Another thing that I really like, be familiar with, a lot of racing people, less familiar on cruising boats, but still a really useful thing to have because it means that you can move the car backwards and forwards from the safety of the cockpit. That means you can change gear easily, and that's all good news. And whilst talking about changing gear, the thing that did actually surprise me is that this boat comes standard with in-haulers. These are basically rings that will pull, that you can pull inboard to tighten the sheeting angle on the headsail, which gives you yet another gear. Now, I don't want to labour the point about details that you might normally find on a race boat that happen to be on this one, but here's another detail. Soft shackles on halyards. Instead of having the normal stainless snap shackle, this is a soft shackle that you just basically open up the loop there and pull the knot through, and then you pull that through and it tightens itself up. And it's a really nice way of attaching to the top of the sail because you've got plenty of articulation, it's light, it's not going to smack into anything and do damage. It's pretty neat. Now, to add to the long list of things and details that I like on this boat, here's another. All it is a locker, you may say. It's a forward locker, and it's big enough to take the asymmetric sail or whatever downwind sail you want. Now, you may say, so what? But you might also be surprised at how many cruising boats there are around now that don't really have anywhere to stow a big sail for downwind. And when they do, it's often down at the back of the boat, which means it's a real workup to get it forward, and then you don't really want to put the kite up and it's all too much effort. Here, it's exactly where you want it. And it's particularly interesting because this is a modern style boat with a fine forward entry. So you would have thought that there wasn't enough room for a locker like this, but it's huge. They've got a big asymmetric in here and the gas locker and plenty of room for fenders and all kinds of other stuff. I like it. But given that this boat was designed and built in Sweden, one of the features up here that is very un-Swedish is to have an anchor off the end of a fixed bowsprit. Because in Scandinavia, quite often, they're more bow to and have the anchors on the stern and they literally step off the bow. But this has got a fixed bowsprit, room for the asymmetric to tack down onto the bowsprit, and a really nice snug system for stowing the anchor. So taking all of that into account, you might not be surprised to hear that I quite like this boat, but it's more than that. I think the Arcona 435 is superb. Really, really nice boat. Modest, understated, beautifully built. The craftsmanship down below, it might be simple and straightforward, but it is just beautifully put together. It sails really well, it handles incredibly well, the performance is really good, and it's confidence inspiring. It's difficult to know what else you'd want out of a 43 footer.
And finally, now the Black Friday dust has settled and you've realised that there wasn't much you wanted after all, here's what you should be buying. Rick Tomlinson's 2022 calendar. Why? Because it's really very good. Plus, you don't have to plug it in or switch it on to admire the shots.
Once again, and as always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe. We're doing a lot of new stuff that goes out on the various playlists, so click the notification bell to make sure that you get to see them as soon as we publish them. Stay safe, stay well, till next time.